Good evening, Eugene. How are you?
I'm good, Jana. How are you today?
Not bad at all, not bad. So we have, for those who haven't seen our podcast and our content before, I'm Jana London, founder of the Natural Women's Council, and Eugene is a retired director in engineering who does lots of research and reading to provide us with an abundance of facts on things that help us fight our cause and build our campaigns. So tonight we've gotten feedback from followers that attend events or watch our podcast, and they've commented that there's so much information in the news that they do see that can be overwhelming, but there's also things we see outside of Ireland that doesn't even hit our mainstream that pertains to what we're campaigning on and the concerns we have. So we're going to be doing a weekly wrap up of news of the week, including some catch up items. And we're going to look at YouTube videos of the week, a couple new and a couple old, look at websites of the week, YouTube channels of the week, books of the week, and really try to keep it to kind of a 20-minute short, snappy wrap up that will be released every Friday. So if people want to sort of see what's happening at a quick glance, they can watch the weekly wrap up. So this is our first one. Hopefully we can keep it to 20 minutes, but we have a lot of catch up to do because it's been a really busy last month. So I'll turn it over to you, Eugene, to talk about the first news of the week.
Yeah, so this one came out of the European elections and it was covered by Grip Media. So they actually did an article on it and you can see it here. And this was talking about a pledge that was signed by a number of the candidates in the European elections here in Ireland. It was also signed by a lot of people in other countries as well. They're claiming up to about 1,000 candidates in other countries signed this pledge with this group called ILGA, who are an LGBTQ kind of advocacy group. Now, I think when it's, I can imagine that people would be looking to support various causes, but I think the concern, now there was a concern expressed in Gript, which was around some of the ancestry of the group and their links to paedophile groups. And that, that's a concern in itself. But I think the concern is probably more about the actual wording of the pledge. And I think if we take a look at the wording of the pledge, it basically says that they'll put the safety of the community, and we assume that's the LGBTI plus community, above all other concerns. And will always follow the do no harm, and I assume the do no harm in this case means any harm to the community principle, including keeping my work out of the public eye whenever necessary. So that to me is kind of a disturbing kind of pledge for politicians to be making. It's compromising them because the term above all other concerns, well, there could be a lot of other legitimate concerns, the welfare of children, for example. So they're going to put this group ahead of that. So this is the concern. I mean, I think people can take a look at it. It's real, it's there. We have a copy of we'll include all the links in the description for this. And again, they want to kind of hide it as well. There's this notion of keeping it out of the public eye. And that kind of ties in with something we've seen in the Denton's document previously as well, which was one of the strategies for NGO advocacy was to avoid excessive press coverage and exposure. And we're kind of seeing it here as well. So they wanted to keep this thing quiet. It was obviously leaked. And we have the list of names. We've got that courtesy of what Gript have reported, and Gript have said that they will update that list if they see any changes to the names. So basically, that'll be the source of information for that. And we thank Gript for capturing that. So it's an interesting story. We'd certainly be interested to hear any of the viewers to this podcast what you think about it. Politicians making a pledge like this to any group, whether it's LGBTI or any other group, that they make such a pledge to put their advocacy ahead of everybody else. I think that's just very disturbing. I don't think it's a good thing to be doing in a democracy.
Keeping it out of the press and keeping it out of the public eye.
Yeah.
It says to me, if you have nothing to hide, why are you hiding it? So that's really good to pick up there.
I think the other point I'd make is how many of these pledges have been made in the past, and what pledges have our TDs made already? Like, are there pledges in action right now, so that when they make various decisions in the Dáil, that they're based on these pledges they've made to NGO groups?
Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there. People can look at the details and maybe give us your feedback in the comments.
We have a surrogacy next, I believe, is a big news piece of the week.
Yeah. So I guess this is one that's hit the news of late, and it's just passed through the Dáil this week without really any discussion. And that says to me, well, is this something that was pledged to somebody?
Hmm.
Because nobody's debating it, right? I think there's a lot of concerns around surrogacy. Again, we'll put some links into some YouTube videos which talk about how this surrogacy operates in some of these poorer countries. Ronan Mullen, Senator Ronan Mullen has actually got a very good website that captures a lot of kind of human rights concerns regarding surrogacy. And we've even got, things like the rights of the child, guaranteeing the right of the child to know his or her parents as far as possible and to be cared by them. And this is obviously going against that kind of thing. And so an awful lot of concerns, this is for money, right? So this is a financial transaction, so that the mother gives up her 9 months. She's been paid to give her body for 9 months to have the child, and then the child has been handed over. So I also, there's from a Catholic perspective, I want to know, brings people's attention to, there's a Catholic document that came out in April called Dignitas Infinita. It's not very well known that this document came out. It also talks about surrogacy. And to quote Pope Francis, and he's actually quoted in the document, and he says, "I deem deplorable the practice of so-called surrogate motherhood, which represents a grave violation of the dignity of woman and the child, and also based on the exploitation of situations of the mother's material needs, because this is done in poor countries, so that the mothers are vulnerable, they don't have any money, and so they're now being taken advantage of." So again, I would be interested to hear people's feedback in the comments. We'll put all the links to this.
I think
This
it's,
is
if
in
I
the
can cut
Senate
in there,
right now.
Eugene, if I could just
Yeah.
cut in and say, I think it's a surrogacy is very degrading to the role of a mother. And we saw in the referendum, they tried to erase mother, but a mother is more than just a rented womb. We are not an apartment for a baby to grow in, only to be sold off. So, I mean, when you conceive a baby and that baby is in the mother's womb, that bond develops from week 1 to week 40, and that baby responds to the mother's voice, when the mother's touch on the belly, and the bond is so strong. And then to have it baby ripped away and sold off, it degrades the mother, having more than just being a rental unit, but that poor child who knew that mother's heartbeat and smell and the mother's body, and then to be handed over to a stranger. It's not like you're a pet shop buying a dog or a cat. It's morally wrong for the mother and the child. And back to your point about poor countries, this is exploitation of underprivileged or impoverished women from impoverished countries who they become a baby making factory just to feed their family. And it's exploitation of those poor women.
It is. No, it's a communist concept of a birthing person,
Mm-hmm.
which is a communist concept,
Mm-hmm.
because where you don't have a family, you have birthing persons
Yeah.
who produce the children. So this is what that is in that sense. And I think everything you've said is 100%, and you're denying that child,
Mm-hmm.
that bond that they have, because there's no other reason than the fact that it's a commercial transaction. Under normal circumstances, that mother, a healthy mother, would want to keep that child.
And just another point
And
is, we see that when the line gets, when something goes over the line and it starts small, then it gets really, really pushed. So it might be, oh, it's just for those really isolated incidences when a couple can't have a baby. But then before you know it, there's going to be a baby making factory, that the line will be so far pushed, that the morals will be thrown out the window, and it's going to be follow the money trail. So it will start off as, isn't it nice? And you can just see where it's ending, and someone's going to be making millions off this factory.
yeah, yeah. So there it is. It's a new kind of development, and as I said,
Mhm.
right now our politicians appear to be all on side with it. And I wonder, is that because they've made some commitment or pledge to other groups? I
Behind
wonder.
closed doors, out of the press, out of the public eye.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the next section on news, it's going to be kind of a mixture, I guess, of all related pretty well to education, or linked strongly to education. There's some things we didn't cover, Jana, I guess, and haven't been covered very much in the Irish news. The CAS report is one that we're all well aware of, but
Mhm.
possibly a lot of people haven't seen it in detail and understand its significance here.
Mhm.
It took 4 years to produce in the UK, based on the experience from the Tavistock. They did a meta-analysis of research in the whole area of gender dysphoria and transitioning and all of that. And it came back with some really key findings. And I think, we're not going to talk about that here. We're not, our intent is not go through the detail of the CAS report. It's mainly to make people aware of it. And we will have the link to the original report. And also GenSpect have done a lot of very good videos on it, and we'll link to a few of those. So we recommend if people want to get the detail. But basically, it kind of, to summarize it, the CAS report shows that there's very little evidence base associated with the medical pathways that are that children were being put through. There's no evidence base for things like the fact the suicidality of children, which is something that people have said, would you prefer a dead child rather than a trans child, etc. Those notions have been kind of thrown out of the water because based on the research here. And the whole effect of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, the really negative effect, and the fact that there's an awful lot more research required. So it's eye-opening. It's great that it's been done, and I think it does change the story quite a bit. And the whole notion of underage transitioning, social transitioning, it really means that those things should not be happening in the main. So I think people should take a look at the CAS report if they haven't seen it, all right, and certainly take a look at some of the GenSpec material, because they've done a great job on it, on breaking it down.
Lisa Mullen in the Natural Women's Council also, we did a podcast on a Saturday night just after the report came out, so that we can post the link to that podcast. It was an hour discussion, kind of going through the few hundred pages and picking out highlights as well.
Yeah, no, that absolutely. So the next one is the WPATH files, and I think this was not covered by mainstream media at all. So WPATH is the World Professional Association of Transgender Health. They're the kind of de facto organization in terms of defining, the best practices for transgender health. And basically there was a leak. Somebody from WPATH actually leaked a whole load of documents and videos of conference calls. And they contain a lot of insights into the operation of WPATH. And again, we'll put the full link to that in the descriptions. People can go and check that out themselves and look at the report that was done. There was a detailed report done as well that consolidated all the material. But the raw material is there also, so people can look at it. And if you look at some of the videos, they're really interesting. There are people in the WPATH team, which is usually a mixture of advocacy people, or you could say even activists in some cases, along with medical people, and they're talking about the various patients, which would be young people, teenagers, young adolescents. And they freely admit on these calls that these children were not in a position to give consent. They didn't have a full understanding. They were too young. Some of them wouldn't have even studied biology by the time they were making the decisions. So decisions regarding their fertility, etc. And in other cases, there was children that had other mental health issues, who again were in no position to make a decision like this based on those mental health issues. So this is quite serious. And the people in WPATH are openly admitting on the calls that they understand this. Of course, they'd never admit that in public. And similarly, the research evidence associated, as we talked about in the CAS report, again, they admit that on the calls, that they do not have any knowledge of what the real impact of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones are going to be. And they kind of admit it. And again, you won't hear that from them in public.
No.
So this is a real insight to the operation in WPATH. I think it discredits WPATH because they knew internally, and you can see it on the conference calls, and it's in the report, and they were saying something totally different to the outside world, and saying, oh, you've got to transition your kids and you've got to do it this as young as possible, and it's reversible, with puberty blockers and all this kind of thing. And they knew it wasn't. And they knew these kids weren't in a position to make a proper consent to what was happening.
So they were harming children
again,
for money. They were basically giving children irreversible drugs, knowing they were harmful, to make money.
Yep. Yeah, and just driven by the kind of ideological position. So, and that it kind of reinforces, what we've seen here with our own clinicians who are looking for a much more cautious approach, which would be contrary to WPATH. We can see that they're on the right side of this, and putting the children first rather than any kind of ideological or other influences that they may have. So take a look at that. Again, it wasn't covered by RTE, wasn't covered by the BBC at all. So WPATH files, we have the links to those, and there's a lot of good material on those. The next one up, again, we talked about Dignitas Infinita because, again, hasn't got a lot of publicity. In another context here, now, Dignitas Infinita is this document that covers a number of social issues, if I call them that. It covers abortion, it covers surrogacy, it covers, the whole area of transgenderism, gender identity, all of that. And specifically on that area, that this teaching on gender, which is the Catholic Church and Pope Francis in particular, has been pretty consistent on this. And he basically says, it's become unacceptable that ideologies are making these claims about, gender ideology and, man becoming a woman and all that kind of thing. And it says that all attempts to obscure, and I'm quoting here from the document, to obscure the reference to the inalienable, you cannot eliminate the sexual difference between man and woman, and all of the notions of doing that are to be rejected. It's black and white. It's in no way vague or anything like that. This is something that they say, it's a temptation. It's, again, quoting from the document, it amounts to a concession to the old age temptation to make oneself God, so that you can kind of create, I am my own God, I am my own identity, and you need to accept me in that identity, that kind of notion. So it rejects this out of hand. Now, why is this important, particularly important at this point in time from an education standpoint? Well, the reason is there are Catholic schools in this country that are not following this teaching. They're using the standard textbooks that are recommended by the NCCA. And those textbooks, as we know, include gender theory in them, the gender ideology, the gender-bred man, the discussion that you can be a boy, a girl, neither or both. You could be born in the wrong body. All of that stuff.
Yeah.
That is to be rejected in a Catholic school. And specifically, and again, we'll give you the link, in Catholic code, the Code of Canon Law, the Catholic Code of Canon Law, and we'll give you the quote. It's in section 803. And again, I'm going to quote here. The instruction and education in a Catholic school must be grounded in the principles of Catholic doctrine. Catholic doctrine, Dignitas Infinita, is clarifying Catholic doctrine. Teachers are to be outstanding in correct doctrine and integrity of life. So there's no ambiguity there. It's black and white. If it's a Catholic school, you should not be teaching, they should not be teaching the standard books, the well-being book. We've got this, the standard textbooks that are there because they incorporate material which is in contravention of Catholic doctrine. There's alternative material that's available from the Catholic Education Partnership. We'll put the link in the description. It's the Living Love material, which is SPHE material, RSC SPHE material, which Catholic schools should be using. It's black and white, unambiguous. It's there in canon law. It's there in Dignitas Infinita. We'll have links to both the documents. And if you've got children in a Catholic school and that Catholic school isn't following this, then it needs to be escalated. You need to highlight that they're in contravention of the Catholic teaching and canon law. And you probably need to escalate that to your local bishop.
Yeah, that would be a good letter we can add to our letter campaigns, is reminding schools that if they are teaching gender theory, then they are in violation of the canon law. And considering, I think it's 88% of schools in Ireland are Catholic, of the primary schools. So almost 90% of schools are Catholic, so they have to follow this. So they shouldn't be bringing in the theory at all, the ideology.
No, they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. It's unambiguous. So, I can appreciate that document has only appeared in April, so it wasn't there at the start of the year, but it is there now. So, and I know it hasn't been publicized. Again, it didn't get any coverage in the mainstream media. It's there, and people should look at that document, as I said, and it does cover surrogacy. It covers, early life termination as well, assisted dying, and it covers abortion, of course. So that's that one. Now, I think another item that hasn't been covered in the mainstream news, and I think this is a big story. It's the whole turnaround in sex education in the UK, Jana. And I think, we've a tweet from Richie Sunak. We'll put it up on the screen, and he basically talks about the change that they're making. The first thing is that parents will have 100% visibility to all the material, because there was an awful lot of gaslighting going on in the UK regarding parental access to material. That there's a whole age ranges to make things more age appropriate, and they're not even going to do any sexuality education for children under 9. Like, that's that's obviously not what you see in the WHO standards, which we
Exactly.
know all too
Age
well aren't.
4, it starts in age 4, teaching masturbation. Age 9, your first
Yeah,
sexual experience. So it's great that the
yeah,
UK, following the Cass report, they finally woke up and removed it.
yeah,
As of, I think that tweet from Richie was Sunak was in on the 16th of May, and the Cass report came out in April. So just after the Cass report, which is the
yeah,
gold standard, and the WPATH leak, all of that information, England acted on it, but Ireland is still pushing a gender ideology in schools, in libraries, onto our innocent children. So that's another.
yeah. Yeah, it is.
Big.
And specifically, he calls out, I mean, it's in, again, you can see it there. Schools will not teach about the contested concept of gender identity.
Mhm.
So, I take my hat off. It's quite a U-turn for the UK to make this.
Yeah.
It's late in the day for the Conservative government to make
Yeah.
such a change, but I think better late than never. And the Cass report, as you said, Jana, and the WPATH files, they've all fed into that. There's no doubt
And
about that.
that's gold standard. Like the Cass report took years. It was based on loads of scientific
Yeah,
data. There's not going to be another Cass that all of a sudden report that says, let's put gender ideology
yeah,
back in. Let's give children puberty blockers and pronouns are okay. No, this is gold standard. It stops now.
yeah, yeah. And 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 even in addition to that, there was huge issues with regarding the material, the sexualized material in the schools. It
Mhm.
just was not age appropriate, and they talk about it in some of the press releases. Again, we'll put in links to a number of press releases, and that how graphical some of the material
Mhm.
was for particularly young children. It
One
was
thing as well,
just very
Eugene, I'll
inappropriate.
just jump in real quick. It said that in the UK that parents will be able to see the materials being used in class, whereas as a parent in Ireland, the books are free. The books will stay at school, and they're asking children to agree to a secrecy pact where they will not share with mommy and daddy what is talked about in the classroom. So keep a secret from your parents. So that's completely it's not moral, but it's also different than the UK's approach, which is that parents will be able to see the materials, and they should.
Yeah. They should, 100%. So, no, that's really good. I mean, there was all sorts of things. They were telling parents that we couldn't show you the material because there was copyright restrictions, there were commercial material, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
No, it's that they've overrided all of that. So again, that's the UK turnaround. You won't have seen it in any of the news stations here. I don't think it was covered in anywhere. And like, if we say something wasn't covered here and somebody's watching this and said, "Oh yeah, but it was covered in the journal.ie or something," absolutely fine. Put that in the comments, and please correct us. We love to be corrected and things like that. The other thing is the next one I want to talk about is about getting into the curriculum. Now, we had our junior cycle where people are going through it at the moment, and I guess we've had concerns about it within our groups. And it's good to see the Irish Independent did a report, so this is in the news, it is in the mainstream news, the 9th of June. They talked about concerns over dumbing down of the curriculum. And these were coming from teachers who were teaching the curriculum, and they were also coming from the ASTI, for example, members of the ASTI. And one of the teachers was actually on one of the NCCA committees, and they have a number of concerns about the dumbing down of the subject matter in the junior cycle, because it was a whole new curriculum introduced in the junior cycle.
Mhm.
And, they use terms like lacking academic challenge, for example, and this focus on climate action and sustainable development,
Mhm.
again raising problems within the curriculum as well. So we'll put a link to that article, and it's good to see those people kind of raising those concerns, and I think we'll echo all the same concerns we see coming through in the primary curriculum. And Grip Media have an article of the 7th of June, and they talk about even the creation of a sense of an Irish identity has kind of been taken out of the curriculum. Any mention, even the social environmental education doesn't contain the word God or Irish culture, for example. So there's a concern here, and there's a more of an emphasis on global citizenship than being an Irish citizen first. So, these are concerns. We have these concerns ourselves. We've kind of captured these in some of the videos we've done. And then David Quinn has written on this as well, and he did an interview with News Talk, and again he highlights the issue of the Irish identity, the global citizenship piece, and also was concerned about the politicization of the curriculum, bringing in critical social justice items, bringing in discussions on racism, topics that are political basically
Mhm.
and would be contested. again, from a political standpoint. So his concern was that, again, we were bringing that into the primary curriculum, and I guess we had all those concerns as well, and age appropriateness was a big concern we would have had in addition to that.
And we saw the
So
discussion on critical race theory about, I think it was maybe 9 or 12 months ago. Norma Foley was speaking about critical race theory. For those people who don't know what that is, it's white privilege. So it's proposing to teach our children here in Ireland that they should feel privileged for being white, male, or Irish. So that's something that's all through the American schools. They're trying to remove it there, but in no place in schools should we be teaching our children their privilege because of how they're born, their color, their religion, their race, anything at all. That's just creating and breeding divide and racism, which we don't want to do.
Yeah, no, and to bring that, the notion of bringing that into the primary schools is just so,
Yeah.
it's nearly child abuse in one sense, to be honest, if they bring it into the full extent.
Yeah.
So that brings us, I guess, to the topic. One of the important topics for this week is the consultation phase for the primary curriculum is coming to an end on the 18th of June. So this is kind of your last chance to get your feedback in. So you can email your feedback in. You can fill it out online. There's a really bad web form that's available on the NCCA website, but we don't advise you going there. We advise you to actually do it in an email, and we actually have a template that will help you. So we'll put a link to that, and we can see it here on the screen where you can get that. You can download that. It's a Word document. It contains our assessment and the concerns that we have, and you can choose. You can agree with those concerns. We have links to all the documents, so you can take a look at them yourselves. You can put in all your own concerns, or you can take some of the pieces that we have and just create your own feedback, and then you can submit it to the email address that's here. It's not case sensitive. And the only other thing that we ask is if you do an email submission, if you could copy the second email address we provide there, that president csspa gmail.com, because that allows us to track the feedback from parents or teachers. And it's good for us to have that, because when we go back to engage with the NCCA, it's good for us to know what level of feedback came through from people who are using our website. So it's good to do that. So
and I'll just jump in, Eugene, and just say that this consultation opened in March, and I'm a parent of 2 primary school children. We didn't get any notification on this until the 21st of May from the school that this was even happening. So it was open for over 2 months, and then they quietly extended the deadline. We were pressuring them that they weren't inviting parents to be consulted in it. So they quietly extended the deadline. They also were asking everyone to only do the web form, and we pushed to allow for the email. Now, from what we saw in the junior senior cycle, my suspicions are that they didn't want us to email because they did not want people to copy the president CSSPA email, so we could collate and track those responses, because they know that parents don't want this. So they were very devious on how they did it, as we saw from the last 2 consultations. So we have to get the feedback in, get it emailed. Let's have the power of numbers with this.
Yeah. And we do have, a number of other concerns. We covered them in 2 videos. There's a short video. The link is on that page there, actually, which is I think it's about 20 minutes long, which goes through some of the kind of concerns that might be a little bit more hidden, mightn't be as obvious as some of the other ones that we talked about. So you can take a look at that to help you with that. So that's kind of a call to action. So we're on to the next section, Jana. We only have one website for the week this week, because we're kind of running. We knew we were going to run tight on time because of a lot of news items. We've got a link here for you. It's for parents of the junior cycle, and it's a link to this company, schoolbooksdirect.ie. You can order the well-being books, the SPH books, and also the CSPE book from these guys. And you can get the teachers versions as well for a lot of them, which can be useful sometimes, particularly for the CSPE book. So if you're a parent and you're concerned because the children don't bring these books home, if you watch some of our videos and you've seen some of the content in these books, and again you're concerned, well, you can actually purchase the books here and get your own copy. And it allows you then to maybe get ahead of what's going on being taught. And if you do want to do an opt-out, for example, you can see what section you might want to opt your child out of, or you may want to have a discussion with your child before they actually get exposed to this stuff in the school. So you shouldn't quite have to do this, but it's at least you can get these books. You have to pay for them. The children are getting them free in school, but they stay in school. But at least you can get a copy. You can take a look at it and you can inform yourself. And again, we've done videos that cover this content. You'll have seen them, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Actually, we're going to talk about that in a minute. So here you go. That's our website of the week. We'll have other websites, different websites in the future, but this is just a very practical one for children or for parents who've got kids in junior cycle. So let's move on, Jana. So the next one, YouTubes of the week. So we come across an awful lot of YouTubes because of a lot of the research we do. So which normal people mightn't see because they tend to be shadow banned, and because the content in them is considered controversial. So a person doing a search for in YouTube is unlikely to find a lot of the videos we're going to talk to you about. The first one is one from this week. It comes from the American College of Pediatricians. And again, it's kind of following on from the CAS report, the WPATH stuff. And there's a set of doctors and various healthcare professionals talking about all their concerns with regard to transgender healthcare here. And it's a very useful video to watch and listen to the concerns that they raise. It's just probably reinforcing, I guess, some of the messages you'll have seen elsewhere with regard on this particular topic. But it's brand new, June 6th. This just came out, so well worth the watch. And there's a whole range of these professionals that come up and give their statements, etc., associated with the issues that they have. So good to take a look at that. The next one is from Senator John Kennedy. Now, Forbes Breaking News produce an awful lot of these videos. A lot of them feature Senator Kennedy because he tends to be very active in terms of giving people a hard time on grilling various people that come before him to get to the truth. And he actually does. This is all his talk on this particular session, and it's on the whole notion of trans athletes in women's sports. Now, the good thing about this particular talk is that he references actual data, actual medical data regarding the development of the male and female bodies from the point in time they're in the womb and then as they develop through their younger years, etc., and how there's such a fundamental difference between the male and female bodies before you even get to the stage of taking puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones or anything like that, that so much is baked in to the biology from day one. And so it's really good. It's a really good video. I suppose he's got his research team have put the data together for him, and he's basically talking about it here and all the good reasons why you do not want to expose young girls and women to adolescent boys or men who are significantly stronger and could cause them serious injuries. And there are examples of that already. And we have the situation in Ireland with the GAA are very much bought into transgender athletes in the GAA. And that has to be a concern for parents of young girls or for women. And it's going to come to a head sooner or later, and I just hope that nobody gets badly hurt. That's the reason it comes to a head, because there's a concern here. So
we
good
have
video,
a letter just for anyone who does have a girl who plays in the GAA. We have a letter to the Ladies Gaelic Football Association on our website that you can send as well, and we'll be uploading one soon. Lisa Mullen from the Women's Council wrote a very lengthy, detailed letter to her daughter's football club. We can put that on the website as well for everyone to send to their club as well if they wish.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great letter, and a lot of references in that letter to World Rugby, for example, who've done a lot of research into this as well. So maybe well worth checking that out. And then the other next old video that I have here, it's one from Professor Lyle Asher. This dates back to 2022, but it's as applicable today. It's probably more applicable to Ireland today. And he talks essentially about how universities have become cults, basically with woke ideology would be what he's referring to there, and how they've been taken over, and how the administration departments in universities has been taken over, and how the scholarship has been taken over, and how it's really destroyed the US universities. And I think we've seen the examples recently with what's been happening on the campuses in some of the most prestigious universities in the world. And there's just crazy stuff going on the campus. You see these outraged, screaming, activist students And there's a good reason why that's the case. And he talks about that. It's a very good video. It's a kind of compilation of a series of small videos where he literally brings you through the whole thing. And the problem is, this is happening in Ireland and has already happened to a degree in some of our universities. So it's really concerning. So if you really want to see how, I guess, woke ideology affects third level institutions, this is an example. If you have children going to university in Ireland, well worth watching this video because it's kind of going to give you a view as to what they're going to be exposed to. So that's that one. And the next one, the second of the two old videos for this week, is our own video series. We did a whole series on the corruption of Irish education, which covers everything from gender identity, queer theory, the WHO, UNESCO, sexuality guidelines, what's actually in the classrooms at the moment. We cover that. And then we also have a discussion on the primary education as well and our concerns around that. So there's a few hours of viewing in there, and we've a couple of shorter videos as well, which you can take a look at. So we're just pushing that this week. Next week we'll have a different video, and we won't be pushing our videos next week.
And
but
we've gotten
we will use
really
this
good feedback, Eugene. One person who viewed the series said this should be getting like millions of hits. It was so informative, and it was hundreds of hours of research to get to those I think 6 parts that we've done so far. And on part 6, you get to see the actual school books, and there's one in there that's absolutely shocking, which has 8 pages on masturbation. I have it locked up very high in my press at home here. And we wrote to Norma Foley to complain about that book, and Norma's response was, that's not the Department of Education, that's the NCCA. So she passed the book here. But it's shocking. So you can start from the top down, part 1, and right down to part 6, which is what your kids are seeing in school. Really terrifying.
The book of the week. So we're going to do a book of the week, and the first one is a free book. So, but don't take it for granted that like you can purchase this book as well. You can go on Amazon and buy this book, which you can also get as a free download. So we've got the link to it. It's The Long March by Mark Sidwell, and it talks about how the left won the culture war, basically, how the left took over our institutions, our universities. It goes back to the history of critical theory in the Frankfurt School and kind of rolls forward then to the current day. This is a good starting point, and it's free.
We have, for anyone really short on time who wants just a quick insight, we have the story time for the Irish Mommy. It's a 10-part series. They're 2 to 3 minutes each. And we have Irish mommies and grannies around the country reading from school books and library books. So a 10-part series. There's a playlist. You can just click on the playlist and they're all right there. And the material is shocking. So that's another quick resource. And you can send those little clips to anybody who doesn't believe they're in this, and this is in the school. Send it to your parent WhatsApp group, or send it to your neighbors, your friends, and say, look what's in the school. It is quite an eye opener.
Yeah. No, and I think just to make that point for people with all the videos that we had, because I've seen various articles in different places saying, oh, there's people raising these things and it's not real and it's not happening. And anything we present in any of these videos is actually the source material. Like we put up the actual, when we go through that school books, they're the actual school books. So
we didn't write them. We didn't make them up.
Yeah, we didn't make them up. So we give the links. So we'll always give the references to people. I wish they weren't. I wish the books were different. Now, I think it is maybe important to say to people that the experiences that we talk about aren't the same in every school, because different schools, different teachers will take different approaches, and Catholic schools do have alternative material, the Living Love material. So the experience will be different from school to school. But the point is, if people are getting the standard books, what's in those books isn't good. It just isn't.
Yeah, no, that's great. So that's our weekly wrap up. Probably tonight was just over for me about half an hour, but now that we're sort of caught up on the last few weeks of really busy news, it'll be really quick hits. We'll record it every Friday for people, so we can get it out before the weekend to catch up on the last week. So that's great. So thanks everyone for watching. Again, all the links to the articles, all the materials will be in the video description. And the most important thing is to like the video, comment on the video, and subscribe, so then it can move up in the algorithm so people can see this important content and be aware of it. So we also have, if any stories that people want us to cover, they can email us at info@naturalwomenscouncil.ie, or a shortcut info@nwcouncil.ie. And if you want any stories to be covered for the weekly wrap up, send them in by, say, Wednesday or Thursday morning, so we can include them in our weekly wrap up. So that's all for tonight, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks, Eugene.
Yeah, thanks, Jana, and thanks everyone for joining.